Hey friends, welcome back to the Finding Joy in Your Home podcast. I am your host, Jami Balmain. And if you are watching over on YouTube, we have video back in our new studio, our new RV studio. We are not fully set up. We don't have our lights set up yet. And we're still kind of trying to figure out the configuration in here. But we are back with the video for those of you who have been missing it on YouTube. And we will work in the next couple of weeks to improve this setup and get it actually like a workable setup. It took a little bit to get this to where we are right now today. So welcome back to the podcast. Today's a really great topic. We're talking about, should Christians care about natural living, healthy things, and to what extent should we care? Okay, this is going to be a good one. So I have got a couple of announcements for you before we get going. Announcement number one, I don't know. Yes, I think I've announced this on the podcast. Now I can't remember. In the last couple of weeks, it's kind of been a blur with moving and getting ready for baby and all the things. So we have 5 brand new books that are coming to our Finding Joy bookstore. I am writing 2 homemaking how-to guides. Jason is working on 2 theology quick start guides on baptism and head covering. My 2 homemaking how-tos are grinding your own grains and brewing kombucha. So fun. And the big news is that I have my next full-length nonfiction book releasing, and it is called A Christian's Guide. I had to think about it. Christian's Guide to Natural Living. This baby is for sure using up all the rest of every single brain cell I have here. It's like 99 degrees today. I'm about ready to have this baby. I'm feeling done, and my brain is feeling done. Okay, so the book is called A Christian's Guide to Natural Living, and it's basically a how-to step-by-step guide for switching out toxins in your home, for becoming more natural with your food, with the products you use in your home, step by step. But what makes this book really unique, that the reason I've wanted to write it for years, is because it's coming from a Christian perspective. And there are some Christian books out there on natural living, which is great, but they, in my opinion, they really leave out a really key central piece. And we're going to get into this a bit in this episode. But I think one of the problems facing us today when we start looking into healthy living and making our families healthier, which I do think are good endeavors, like we're going to talk about, the problem is we can then make those an idol. And we very much miss out on the fact that God is sovereign over all things. And we start to think that we are holding our family's lives in our hands, and that we can prolong life by doing healthy things. And there's this huge piece missing that, yes, God has asked us to care for our families. He's given our families into our responsibility, but we hold that with equal measure with the fact that God is sovereign. And okay, I'm getting into the subject matter for today. So that's what I wanted to write a book about. So A Christian's Guide to Natural Living is coming out pretty soon. You can pre-order the print book at findingjoybookstore.com. Any of those 5 print books I just talked about, you can go to findingjoybookstore.com. And the really fun thing is we're also recording the audiobooks for these. And the first 4 chapters of the audiobook are already up on our app. So if you go to joyfulhomeapp.com, you can see the first 4 chapters are there. Jason's working on getting the rest edited, and those will be up in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to, and then the rest of those audiobooks for the other 4 ones I talked about, those will be up in the next month or so as well. We also had Anne of Green Gables, the audiobook, which I read. I also read my audiobooks, my books that I wrote, but I read Anne of Green Gables. We're starting that whole 8-book series. I'm about halfway through recording book number 2. That book number 1 is on the app now. We have The Adventures of Tom Sawyer just released to the app this week. We have so many incredible things that have been hitting the app lately. So my big announcement for you is that we are going to be sunsetting our 20% off deal for our annual subscription. So right now, if you use coupon code JoyfulHome20, you can get 20% off the monthly or the annual. The annual, though, already is a pretty big discount because you're getting 2 months free. And you can stack that 20% on top of it. So we have found it's too low to keep up with our operating costs, because it comes out to then like $8 a month. So it's a pretty big discount. And so if you want to, though, take advantage, we're giving you guys one last chance to take advantage of that 20% off by using coupon code JoyfulHome20 at joyfulhomeapp.com. And you can use that coupon code through Friday, August 2nd. So you really should come. I mean, there are hundreds of resources on this app. So go check it out, joyfulhomeapp.com. All right. Those are my long announcements. All right. So let's jump into this. So I don't really think that this is the stigma much anymore. However, when I really first got started into healthy living, and I talk a lot about that journey in my book, it was 12, 13 years ago. And that doesn't sound like that long ago, but in the natural world, that is light years ago. So when I first started getting into healthy living, it was still super fringe. Like, it was not something that people were aware of. I mean, maybe a tiny bit. Like, I'm talking, I started using essential oils before people would say, what? Like, they've never heard the term. And so back then, what we met a lot of, and what I had to wrestle through when I first started looking into it, is healthy living like new agey. And it was a lot of very much hippie resources. And even today with crystals, there's a lot of new agey stuff that can creep in. Absolutely. But back then it was really this wrestling with, is this okay for Christians to be into natural living? Or is this, voodoo, whatever. And now today, I actually think we have quite the opposite problem. And so I see a lot of people in the last couple of years, and even now, starting to realize like, oh, my son had really severe eczema. I started realizing his diet affected it. I started realizing the lotion and the shampoo we were using was affecting it. And so often these health concerns then turn into realizing how many toxins and just gross things are in so many of these products we use every day. And we kind of wake up to the fact that, oh, there's a better way to do some of this stuff. So the opposite problem we have now today, though, is making an idol out of natural and healthy living and swinging so far from, on one ditch you have, I don't care about anything. I can eat whatever I want. None of it matters at all. Switching all the way over to being so tightly controlled with every portion, whatever, that crosses your mouth, with being so staunch that you hurt relationships because you can't allow your kids to have a cookie, which, I mean, I get it. There are times where legitimately you have to put at boundaries with food, things like that. But getting so much to the fact that you think your child eating a Pillsbury, whatever, they don't do cookies, whatever they do, a roll, is just life-shattering, devastating, just making this your personality, making this so all-consuming that it's hurting relationships, that it's hurting your family, in this quest to want to care for our family. It's really where it's coming from, but it becomes this, it really becomes an idol. And the piece that we miss in this is that God is sovereign. God is sovereign. So you guys, I'm going to tell you what. Some of you are going to be like, this is so disgusting. I still probably to this day, I haven't had it in years, but I would probably love it. I love Diet Pepsi. Love it. Love it. I drank it growing up as a kid. I didn't like regular soda. It was too sweet for me. It hurt my stomach, which was the high sugar content. Love Diet Pepsi. So got my first job at 16, working at a grocery store. Grocery stores have a lot of Diet Pepsi. And I would get like the 1 liter bottle, not the big 2 liter, but not a tiny one. And I just would drink it throughout the day. And I would have Diet Pepsi every single day. And you know what causes cancer? Diet Pepsi. And I think back and I think the amount of Diet Pepsi that I have consumed in my life is really disgusting. And yet I don't have to sit here right now today, and I don't fuss over that. I don't worry about that. I don't have any thoughts of, oh my gosh, what did I do? Because I didn't know any better at the time. I wasn't being negligent. I wasn't, and even then there's forgiveness. God works all things. And at the time I was just a kid and I drank what was given to me, and then I liked it and I bought some and I had Diet Pepsi. And so there's so many people who will obsess over that then and stress and go, oh, what did I do? And oh my gosh, am I going to get cancer one day? And get so out of whack for past choices or choices that are currently happening, that we forget this key piece, that God is sovereign, that God is in control. There are consequences for living in a fallen world, but I can't control those. So if I get cancer one day because I drank a lot of Diet Pepsi, I hope not. God is still sovereign and God is still in control over that. Now, I no longer drink Diet Pepsi because personally, I do think that it is detrimental to my body. That is not something that I will willingly put into my body. But if I accidentally took a sip of it, I'm also not going to freak out over it, right? So there is this absolute balance that we have to get to in our modern world because we do know better on so many things. So I feel called to care for my family. So I don't want to eat a standard American diet in my household, which is called the SAD diet. SAD diet for a reason, because it is chocked full of stuff that makes you sick, makes you fat, makes you so unhealthy, kills your heart, gives you cancer. Like, there are some really bad things that if we ate processed foods, knowing what I know now, if we ate processed foods 3 meals a day, every day, I personally would be sinning because God has called me to care for my family better. Now, once upon a time, I was trying when we were first married to try to figure out, I mean, knew nothing about cooking, knew nothing about nutrition. And, there was these like breakfast burritos. I don't know. There was something that at the time, back then, there weren't a lot of healthy options like in the store. Nowadays, we actually have some really good healthy options. You can buy pre-made stuff. We didn't have anything back then. And I remember there was like these burritos that were like on the front of the package, like claimed, oh, these are, healthy. And I don't even know what the claims were. Low fat. I don't know what it was back then. And Jason and I were newly married and I'm trying to, take care of my husband. And we had for like a year, we bought those all the time and they're so healthy. And then I come later to find out, learn all these things. And I'm like, these are trash. These are not healthy at all. But I was trying. And there are times where we try and we buy the thing and we buy the special wipes that we're supposed to buy for our babies. And then later we find out they had lead. Things like that happen all the time. And that's when we have to recognize and realize that God is in control. We are to obey what he's calling us to do. So for me, I strongly feel that is to care for my family in a healthy way. When we have things like eczema, when we have health issues, we went through really bad yeast. In fact, my son got an incredibly bad, like leaky gut. And it was up to me to get to the bottom of that. And a lot of it was nutritional and figuring out supplements to take. And it was hard work and it was a lot. And he had an incredibly restrictive diet. He could not have cookies during that time as we were trying to fix this issue, which we did, thank the Lord. And there's things that God calls us to be responsible for, and that we're to obey that and that we're to listen. But we hold it in balance, knowing that God is in control. So I'm going to tell you what, McDonald's, it's not healthy for you. We know that, right? Okay. This is not news to anyone. We know McDonald's is not healthy. But so we don't eat McDonald's. We don't stop at McDonald's very often. It's not like a thing. We can't afford it either with a large family. Even now, like feel like in the 90s, McDonald's was like super cheap to go eat as a family. Now it costs like $100. Like it's not even cheap. But we have been on a road trip where food didn't work out as planned or what have you. And we stopped for, guess what? McDonald's breakfast sandwiches. And God is in control. And not everybody is going to have the same standards. Not everybody's going to agree on the same things. You might say, I would never do that. I would never go to McDonald's. Okay, that's fine. That's your personal conviction. That's what you've decided. That's okay. Other people look at me and go, oh, I can't believe you grind your own grains. I would never do that. That's okay. We can have different requirements for our families, especially based upon different health needs for our families at the time. And also taking into account your husband's preferences. And this is something that I see often that is very sad, is that in a quest to want to care for our families well, to love our families, to eat healthier, to do all these things that are really good, many women can end up really hurting their husbands in the process because they are not listening to their husband's preferences. And there are times where maybe you just need to make the thing that you think is a bit less healthy, make the biscuits and gravy, because that is loving your husband and loving your family well, and to have peace with that. and to know that people are more important than food. And so through all this rambling, the point is that we need to hold this in balance, and that balance will look different for different family members, and between different families. But we need to make sure that we are firmly rooted in the fact that God is sovereign over everything. God is sovereign over every last minute of your life. He already knows when you will die and when your family will die. He already knows. He already has it planned out. We can rest in that, knowing that our food choices and our non-toxic choices are not going to add a single second to our lifespan outside of what God has already sovereignly ordained. And maybe within your story, God is going to use you to work powerfully with your family's health, and God is going to use that mightily. So be obedient to what he has called you to, but do not mistake it for the fact that you are not in control. Do not think, God has called me to do this, I am in control. You are still not in control. God is in control. And we need to remember that. And if circumstances work out that you end up having to stop at McDonald's and you get breakfast sandwiches, praise God for food in your belly. I also think we say prayer before eating. Whoops, I'm sorry, I'm hitting the microphone. That was probably obnoxious. I talk too much with my hands. But I forgot my point completely. Oh, I think there's a really, there is something to say before, we pray before we eat. I don't think those are empty words. We ask God to bless this food to our bodies. So what if you lived in a country where you had no money? And in a lot of Asian countries are like this, where you can get rice really, really cheaply, and most of your dishes consist of rice. And maybe you're lucky to get some protein in, and you just eat a lot of rice. Well, guess what? White rice especially, brown rice especially, but certain kinds, but rice has extremely high levels of arsenic. What if that's the only food that you have access to? You pile that rice on your plate and you literally say, Lord, bless this food to our bodies. Help this meet our nutritional needs. Help this to bless our family with the food that we have on our table today. And that is a huge source of conviction for me when, especially in the last 18 months, we've really had to, our grocery budget has not increased in the last 18 months. In fact, there have been months where we're like, hey, we need to cut this down a little bit. The economy's been rough. And there are times in the last 18 months where many times, where I have had to reduce the quality of what I'm buying at the grocery store. So as I started looking into healthier living, especially in the last 8 to 10 years, it felt like I was on a steady climb of making our family's food higher quality. Because as I learned that I could make homemade bagels, I could actually make homemade bagels way cheaper than I could buy bagels in the store, and they were way healthier. Well, and I learned how to make dried beans. Never made dried beans. You start making dried beans, especially with a large family. We go through a lot of beans. Start making dried beans over buying canned beans. I'm saving money. And all these little areas added up to where I could buy more organic produce then. Things that legitimately are just more expensive. I could buy the better quality oils and things that, yes, there was a price jump, but I was learning to save money, and I'm figuring this out, and the quality of our food's just climbing and climbing. In the last 18 months, especially last 2 years, I have been making cuts in my food quality. I have not been climbing. In fact, we've cut back in certain ways. I'm buying things that I didn't have to buy 3 years ago because I could afford a better quality option. We're not eating as much organic. And I don't love that. I wish that we, and I'm hopeful in the future we can, buy better quality, that we'll have, more produce that we grow ourselves. There's a lot of things you can do. But for this season right now, today, in July 2024, I will take the ingredients that I can get, the things that we can afford, that we can put on our plate for our children, which we are still so abundantly blessed compared to most of the world. But I can take that and I can say, thank you, Lord, for the food you have put before us. This is what you have given us with the time and the resources that you have given us. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to thank you for that and bless this food to our bodies. It's not all organic. There's pesticides in it. There's glyphosate in it. And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to say, thank you, Lord, that there's food on my plate. And then when and where I can, I want to work on that. I want to make good choices. Okay, here's a small one. So brown rice. Brown rice actually contains a lot more arsenic than white rice. However, white rice is not as healthy. It's not as nutritional. I mean, that's fine if you want to have white rice, like no big deal. But I was really determined a few years ago that I wanted to find a brown rice. This is when I was really like investigating every ingredient and figuring out like, what's the healthy version of rice? So I started looking into brown rice, which like up till that point, I'd really only ever bought like wild rice, which, I mean, wild rice is fine sometimes, but it takes like 1,000 years to cook. It's always tough. I just thought brown rice had to taste like cardboard. And so I started kind of experimenting and I get like a little bit of different kinds of brown rice. And I really quickly found out that brown rice has much higher levels of arsenic because it's grown in the ground and it has the bran attached. That is where the arsenic is like stored, whereas in white rice, a lot of that is swept out. So I'm like, okay, great. You're trying to be healthier. And then you end up with more arsenic. So way back then, I came across an article sharing the fact that basmati rice, which is a certain type of rice, you know, you have jasmine and all the different kinds. Basmati rice has the lowest arsenic content out of all rices. That's really interesting. So I ordered a little bag of brown basmati rice because back then, actually, it was very difficult to find. It has exploded in popularity in the last few years for good reason. And it tastes amazing. Our whole family prefers brown basmati rice to any sort of white rice. It has more flavor. It's a better texture. It doesn't taste like cardboard. And it has the lowest arsenic content out of any rice that there is. So like, what a great switch right there, right? Like that's something that I can steward my family well. It's a really easy switch. Now I get it on Azure. You can find brown basmati is actually at Costco a lot of times for a terrific price. So there are so many things we can do like that to care for our family well. But push comes to shove and your only option is white rice or some other brown rice that has more arsenic. We can thank the Lord for food to fill our bellies. And God can use that food, despite it not being the highest quality, despite it not being whatever. God can use that to bless our bodies and to bless our families. And so there is very much this tension. And it's the exact tension that we have to just be okay sitting in with the fact that God is sovereign over everything. And yet he gives us free will. We have free will to make choices. We have free will to make bad choices. We have free will to harm our bodies. And yet God is sovereign and in control. I had a hard time reconciling that for a while. And I finally listened to, I have no idea what it was, but it was some sermon by John MacArthur years ago. And he was talking about the fact, it was something on God's sovereignty. You can probably go find it. And he said one line about this and said, there is a tension here. We sit somewhere in this balance between man having free will, but God being sovereign over it all. And we just have to be okay that this side of heaven, we don't understand quite how that works. So the same with food. We sit in this a little bit of an uncomfortable balance, and yet this uncomfortable balance gives us total freedom and peace. So on one hand, we do have responsibility. I have responsibility to care for my family. I have responsibility to help with food allergies, with figuring out sicknesses like leaky gut, with helping our family have energy and vitality. Because if we ate McDonald's 3 times a day and just sat around on iPads 100% of every single day and we didn't get out and get active or eat good, nourishing food, our energy would be terrible. We wouldn't be serving the Lord. We wouldn't be serving the Lord to the best of our ability. There's really tangible benefits for caring for our bodies well. But we hold it in this tension and this balance with the fact that God is sovereign over everything. So we don't become food Nazis over every single tiny thing that passes our through our mouth, because that becomes unhealthy. It hurts relationships, hurts outside relationships. Your mother-in-law suddenly feels like she can't be a part of your children's life because she can never, ever do anything right. Look, I get it. I get that there are times where boundaries need to be held in place. I get that. I get that sometimes people overstep boundaries, but I also think that the current millennial parents take it way too far. Way too far. As a generality. And that we need to realize too that what is more important, grandma being able to be involved with her grandkids and your kid gets a cookie, or ostracizing your parents or your husband's parents and making them feel like they have no part in your children's life, that they can't be involved. We need to hold this stuff with balance. We really, really do. And I get it. There are times like when Malachi was going through his leaky gut protocol, this poor kid couldn't eat anything. And he was such a trooper. He was young, but his stomach was in so much pain that he was fully on board. So I was really proud of him, because it can be tough when all the other kids in the family can eat all this other stuff and he couldn't eat anything, but it was causing him enough pain that he was on board. But he could not have a cookie. He couldn't have, whatever, while we were really doing this very intense work. But it was for a short time. He knew the reasoning. This was not arbitrary. It was something that we were really needing to work on at that time, in order to be able to heal his gut so that he could someday have a cookie again. And there are allergies. Allergies are tough. There are times where there's allergies where you have to say they cannot have any dairy. They cannot have any of this, So there's things we do. There's boundaries that we do need to set up. I understand that, but they can be done with love. They can be done with grace. And we need to ask ourselves, is this something that truly needs to be a boundary? Or am I being a perfectionist? Am I trying to hold to such a crazy ideal that I'm hurting relationships in my life? I'm hurting my husband because I'm not letting him eat the food that he wants to. Ladies, our husbands are not our children. We need to realize that. And so if you're wanting to make some healthier choices, help him say, hey, I know you love biscuits and gravy, and we normally buy... can you buy canned gravy? I don't know. I didn't grow up eating biscuits and gravy. We make it now, but I know it's like a Southern thing. You could buy this canned gravy and the Pillsbury biscuits. And I know you love that, but I'm going to try making a homemade version. And let's keep trying the recipe until it's how you love it. That can be very loving. That can be a great way to say, hey, let's try to make some changes. But if at the end of the day, your husband still prefers the boxed one, get in the boxed one sometimes as a great treat. Let's not treat our husbands as children. And a lot of times in this natural living journey, that very much can be the case. And so let's not make it a point of contention in trying to serve our families well. Let's not make it a point of contention within our families either. There's good ways we can approach this. There's things I know. Something that's been very helpful is a lot of times it's women who hear podcasts. They come across research. They come across things and think, oh, there's changes I want to make. And I know at first, Jason was much more like 12 years ago was like, some of these things seem stupid. What are oils? Do they do anything? And some of the changes I wanted to make, he was very hesitant about why are you doing these weird things? And I remember with, what was the one I was thinking of? I had an example that I was thinking of. I can't think of it now. But I do remember there was one time where I had I've never had wireless headphones. Because when they first started coming up, I did research and was like, no, they're going to kill your brain. There's no way. I'm not that constant of a thing. I'm not going to put it in my head. Jason had wireless headphones. It's not my favorite thing. However, instead of nagging him, telling, whatever, I was like, hey, this is kind of interesting. And he's like, I just kind of don't buy it. This seems kind of dumb. How is that hurting me? And I said, hey, you know what? If I send you a couple articles on this that I have found, will you read them? And he said, sure. That was it. It wasn't like, hey, read them and then I'm going to nag you and beat you over the head. So send him the articles. He read them. I'm like, what'd you think? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. He didn't really say anything about it. And I'm like, okay, he's not interested. He's not convinced by my articles I sent. That's fine. So then a couple months later, he really liked the wireless headphones for being able to work out at the gym, which I totally get. A couple months later, one of the headphones broke. And all of a sudden, he's on Amazon looking up wired options. And I said, oh, aren't you going to get another pair of wireless? He's like, no. you completely ruined it for me, and in a joking way. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, I can't, after you sent me those articles, I can't buy wireless headphones again. He said, I figured I already own them. I'm not going to throw them out. I'll use them. And he's like, but now that they broke, I can't. And now it's been, I don't know how many years, and he'll never buy another pair of wireless headphones because of the research. And so I think there are times where we can win our husbands over by not nagging, not becoming a pest, not belittling them either, and recognizing that they have brains and that they can research stuff, and that two people can come to two different conclusions. He could have read those and thought, I just don't think it's that big a deal. Okay. I mean, that's fine. You're an adult, do what you want. But approaching it, I think, especially for men, from a very logical standpoint, I sent him the data. I sent him the science and said, this is what I'm concerned over. And I sent it to him and I let him look at it and I let him read it. And there's been plenty of other natural things where we've had tons of discussion and been like, what do you think? And what do you think? And but in that case, it was not something that I needed to sit there and nag him about or anything. I could say, hey, here's some research, take a look at it. Would you read it? See what you think. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for that as well when husbands and wives are not on board. Okay, those were just like some deep tangents there. We get really into these arguments fully in the book, and they're written very succinctly and nicely, not Jami's pregnant, scattered brain at the moment. So the reason, and we touched on this, but let's go through this a little bit more step by step. So the reason that I care about this is that I think that I have a responsibility to care for our bodies. I have a responsibility to care for my body, and I have a responsibility to care for my family's bodies. As a wife and as a mom, as a homemaker, I think that's one of my big roles, is to care for my family's health. So there's this great passage in 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20. Now, this passage is talking about sexual immorality. However, so don't be confused by that. It is talking about something different. However, I think the principle can be applied to whatever we do with our bodies. So it says, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own. You were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. And I think this is where a really good principle comes into play, is that we do need to realize that we can glorify God with our body and with our energy and with how we spend our time. And I get a lot of people say, Jami, how do you have so much energy to do all that you do? Well, I don't always have the energy. You don't see all the times where I'm just like laying on the couch. You see when I'm cleaning the kitchen or something. But I think a large part of it is because, I've had times where I was rock bottom, no energy, felt horrible, but it's that work. It's the work on your body. It's work on hormones. It's work on figuring out, the things that I eat that make me have more energy, and caring for my body by getting enough sleep and not scrolling on my phone until 2 a.m. There's things that we can do to really care for ourselves. And those are things that are glorifying to God. So we need to realize that we can be sinful with laziness, with not caring for ourselves properly. I absolutely have had sinful laziness when I have brought my phone to bed and stayed up scrolling and stayed up too late, couldn't get up in time, get up well to care for the kids in the morning. I'm exhausted. That's not using my time well. There's very much sin involved in not using our time well. And time well sometimes looks like laying down and taking a nap and getting enough sleep. I'm not saying you burn yourself at both ends trying to do all the things all the time. No. A really big part of caring for ourselves is rest and balance and caring for our bodies and nourishing our bodies. That is huge, and in turn allows us to more fully serve the Lord. So, we've got your hormones out of whack. That's a big one for a lot of us. When you're out of shape, you're not making good nutritional choices. You will not have as much energy, stamina, or brain power to serve the Lord. So we need to be good stewards of what God has given us. He's given me this body at this time and this place, and I need to care for it to the best of my ability so that I can serve God and serve those around me. We can glorify God in our bodies when we take care of them in a way that we have the energy and stamina to do that. So for me, a healthy lifestyle helps promote that energy, mental clarity, to work hard at our jobs, to care for our home, to diligently teach our children, to love our husbands, to serve in God's church, and to do it to God's glory. So for me, my main goal of healthy living is not to lengthen our life, because I think God has already determined that, but rather to be able to more fully serve the Lord. And, a motivator for me right now is I want to have energy to run around and play with my young children right now. But my oldest twins are almost 12. And there is this countdown in my brain suddenly that I'm like, oh, their childhood's almost over. Like I will blink and they're going to be adults. They're going to be getting married. They're going to be having kids. And I absolutely have such a deep conviction that as far as it's up to me, as far as I can, and the Lord could have different plans, I want to be able to keep up and run around with my grandchildren. I want to be able to serve my family further in the years to come. And a huge part of that, if I want to be 50, 60, 70, running around doing all the things, is making sure that when I'm 30, 35, 40, that I am taking care of myself. And when you get into your 30s, all of a sudden you realize it's not as easy as it was when you were in your 20s. And I'm assuming I will continue saying that as into my 40s, right? And you don't naturally have as much energy. Things do get harder. You have more aches and pains. And so in that, we can serve the Lord, not only for today, can we take care of our bodies well, but for the future as well. That's a really big goal of mine. So the other thing to say is we will not always have control. So this is where God's sovereignty goes into play. So we can do okay, I'm pregnant right now, right? I can do everything right, quote unquote, right. I can do everything perfect. I can take every perfect prenatal vitamin that's methylated, that's got all the right things, add in the beef organs. I can do all the right things, make all the right choices, have the perfect dream, pain medication free birth, which I will not be. I'm going to have a dumb C-section again. Not happy about that, but it is what it is. God is in control. You could do everything by the book, perfect, natural, amazing, and your kid can come out with health problems. And it's really easy. And I've heard women say, well, I did everything right. Why do I have a child who has this health issue? So-and-so eats junk all day and her baby has no issues. It's really easy to think that our reward from doing the right things is that, it's a reward then that we will have the perfect baby with no health problems and none of this. We think, well, I took care of myself. I've done the right things. I've done hormones. Why do I have a chronic illness now? Why? I have major issues with my thyroid. I have hyperthyroid. I most likely have Graves' disease, which is a autoimmune disease, but we have really worked on keeping it in remission and working really hard at treating it well. But anytime I go through stress, anytime being pregnant, excuse me, my thyroid just goes wackadoodle and I have to kind of rein it back in. And it's really easy to think like, why? Why do I have this issue? Why do I have this issue? And yet we can't control. People do get cancer. People do have chronic illnesses. Our children are going to struggle with illnesses. Our kids are going to struggle with things, whether or not we do the right things. But we trust God in that. And there's still, even in those sicknesses and in those health problems, there are things that we can do to more fully live out the Lord's work day by day. Maybe it doesn't look the same, but you can serve the Lord from a wheelchair, right? I mean, we know that. So there are so many things that we need to keep in balance, that if God grants the health and the vitality and the energy, we thank him for that. And if he doesn't, we thank him through that as well. But knowing that A plus B equals C. No, it's not that, we do these things. Therefore, God grants us perfect health and vitality all the time. There are things that God's going to call us to. There's seasons we are going to walk through. There's sicknesses, there's illnesses, there's things that we do not have any control over and that we do not understand why. But we serve the Lord faithfully through that. So for me, I have 8 kids that God has given me to care for, which I will tell you does take a lot of energy. I have a household to run. I serve the Lord day by day in the other things he's given into my responsibility. And because of that, I have a responsibility to serve the Lord to the best of my ability. And that is why I care about healthy living things. That's why I care about nutrition and supplements and hormones and all of the things, because I would not be able to do what I do every single day if I ate McDonald's 3 times a day and led a sedentary lifestyle. There's no way. There's no way that I could do what I do. And so I want to be a good steward of the time God has given me on this earth. And in turn, I can do the same for my family. And as much as it's up to us, and as much as we can with our time and with our resources that God has given us. And when we hit that wall where there's things we can't control, the things we can't do, the time we don't have, we trust the Lord in that. And we have peace. We have peace and say, this is not on us. We have peace knowing that God is in control. And so to me, that's the really big factor. We know that with our beauty care, makeup and skincare and cleaning products we use within the house and food and all of the things, we know that there are toxins, that there are things in there that mess up our hormones, that cause things like leaky gut, that cause cancer, just runs the gamut. There, we know that there's those things in there. And so I don't think it's bad at all to say, hey, I need to figure out a different laundry detergent. My kid has eczema and is really struggling with this. Or I'm having completely horrible, out of whack hormones that's causing many issues. I need to take some of these toxins out of my house because they have direct results on our hormones. That's not a bad thing at all. That's what healthy living and natural living is all about. Figuring out real good solutions for our families, but doing it in a way that is balanced. When I first started, I ripped open Pandora's box of realizing all this toxic stuff and all these things we were using all the time. And I was like, oh no, my house has 40 things. Probably more than that. Like your shampoo, your conditioner, your shaving cream, everything you use. You're like, what? We were a young married couple expecting our first set of twins, living on one income. Hello. We couldn't afford to just throw everything out. Couldn't do it today. Can't afford to just throw everything out and drop $1,000 buying all new stuff. No, we continued using the stuff we had. And as I ran out of laundry detergent, I tried to research an affordable option that I could actually afford. Not putting us into debt buying natural laundry detergent, but something I could actually afford that would work well. Do the research or, replace one thing at a time. It's all about those baby steps and recognizing that there are things that have very real effects on our family, but that I can also do it in a way that is serving my family well without hurting my family, if that makes sense. So that is what the book, A Christian's Guide to Natural Living. The beginning is a lot of, first couple of chapters is more encouragement in this way, helping us think biblically through what does it mean to serve the Lord through natural living. And then the rest of the, 8 chapters are step-by-step guides. So how do you start reading food ingredients, the labels of foods? How do you personal care products, cleaning products, baby and kid products? How do you start looking through? How do you start swapping things out? And what I say over and over again, which you guys have probably heard me say before, that you'll probably get sick of in the book, is do the best you can with what you have and trust the Lord with the rest. Do the best you can with what you have and trust the Lord with the rest. So I just had a baby shower for this baby. This baby is a boy. He will be born exactly 2 years after the last boy. Their birthdays will be a week apart. And I didn't need anything like baby stuff for the shower. So everybody brought me diapers. So thankful for that. But there are mini boxes of I don't know what brand. I think it's the Pampers ones that have fragrance on them. They're disgusting. I don't know why there's fragrant diapers. Diapers that I would not have normally bought. And I am thanking the Lord for that provision. It's actually quite a blessing to be able to get that many diapers. They're not the ones that I would have chosen. If my son does end up having rashes or some crazy thing, I won't be able to use the fragrance ones. That's okay. But I'm planning on using them. I'm going to use them and thank the Lord for that and trust the Lord in that. And it's not that many. And when they run out, then I'll have to go buy my own. Well, actually, we have cloth diapers. But I'm going to praise the Lord for that blessing that people were generous enough to bring those, right? And so if there is issues, you can donate those diapers to someone else. There's things you can do. But this is the balance that we have to look at life with. This is what we have to realize. Say, God provided something, and maybe it's not the exact thing that I would have chosen, but God provided. And I'm going to bless the Lord, thank the Lord in that. Okay, so if you want to check out the book, Christian's Guide to Natural Living, you can pre-order the print copy at findingjoybookstore.com, or you can get the audiobook and the ebook version on our app, as well as all of our other audiobooks and ebooks, as well as all of our other courses, everything, hundreds of resources right there at findingjoyapp.com. Actually, if you want to, that leads you to the demo of the app. If you want to actually, like, you can poke around, you can see everything that's on there. It's actually really cool. Like, the app is all front facing. It's an app or a website. Access it either way, but it's all front facing. So you can actually, like, you can't listen to the stuff without subscribing, but like you can poke around. So that's at joyfulhomeapp.com. But if you go to findingjoyinyourhome.com/app, and you know what? Hold on. I'm so bad, you guys. Hold on. joyfulhomeapp.com. I am so bad about, I mean, you guys know this. I'm so bad about putting links in the show notes, and I'm always like, tell Jason to do that later. I never do. So I just wrote notes for myself to put the links here. If you go to findingjoyinyourhome.com/app, findingjoyinyourhome.com/app, it will lead you to a page that tells you all about the app. So everything that you're going to get in it, and then you can actually find the live demo from there as well. But you get all of those resources. It's normally $12.99 a month, which, I mean, if you even consumed, I mean, maybe one resource a month, we're talking all of our past conferences, courses, learn how to brew kombucha. We've got a canning course. We've got, I mean, how to grind your own grains. I mean, if you're interested in healthy stuff, we have a whole healthy living conference that's on there that's got classes on hormones, anything within healthy living. We've got a natural medicine cabinet boot camp, which teaches you how to make all of these like home remedies yourself. Oh my word. Like, it'll save you so much more than $12.99 a month. So it's normally $12.99 a month, but if you use coupon code JoyfulHome20, you can get 20% off. So it makes it just $10.39 a month. And that 20% discount does roll over month after month. As long as you stay a subscriber, it'll always be that 20% off for you. It's not just the first month. But what we have that's extra special right now is you can get 20% off the annual plan, which already has 2 months free, and 20% off. So it comes out to like $8.66 months. $8.66 per month, like if you were to break it down monthly. So, I mean, you're getting, like, the amount that you're getting is incredible in that. And we have new resources coming out every single month. I just published my first cookbook. If you're wanting to learn how to cook from scratch in a really simple, easy, affordable way, my first cookbook is now on the app. Oh my, the amount of things on there, and we're just getting started. We just launched the app in March, and there's already the amount of resources on there is kind of staggering. So if you guys want to check that out, we are sunsetting that extra 20% off the annual plan Friday, August 2nd. It was actually supposed to expire this last week, but I had a lot of people writing in saying, could you please, it does take an investment. So would you please leave this open through the 1st, because that's when we get paid. And I realized there's a lot of people in that boat. And so we went ahead and extended it by a week till Friday, August 2nd. So if you want to check it out, go to findingjoyinyourhome.com/app. As of right now, today, the first 4 chapters of my book are already there, ready for you to listen through. So if you're like ready to dive farther into this topic, findingjoyinyourhome.com/app. Use the coupon code's on that website. You can find it. But you can listen to the first 4 chapters. And then as soon as Jason has the next couple of chapters done, we'll be just uploading them into the app. So you'll be able to listen through the full book within the next couple of weeks, which is really exciting. I have already had the feedback on this book has been amazing. I had somebody write in and was like, tons of emojis. And she's like, this is amazing. I love it so much. This is the best thing you have ever done. And I'm like, oh, I love it. And she said, I've loved all your other stuff, and this is my favorite. I really am very proud of this book. I think it is the missing link of practical, step-by-step, hands-on, but also holding God's sovereignty. What I always say is you're going to walk away from this book feeling very encouraged and empowered in your home, and not guilty and fretful and anxious of all these things you need to make at once. We're going to help you. And actually the last chapter is like a beginner's guide of like, now you've gone through all this, how do you actually like implement change? It's really good. Okay, I'm going to be done. Head over to findingjoyinyourhome.com/app. I don't have the air conditioner blowing on me when I've got this door shut because the air is very loud. And so I'm starting to melt in here. So I'm going to be done. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Don't forget to go check out the book and the resources and all of that. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys back here next week for the next episode.